Alright everybody, welcome to part 2 of the Idaho Adventure 2022. If you haven't watched the first part, I'd recommend going back and watching that. Kind of give some context in the adventure and leading up to this point. But we'll start off this video. Jeff and I did do a little bit of flying before we parted ways and he went home. We hopped over to Thomas Creek and did a little exploring around there. I'll show you a little bit about that. Everybody, welcome to Thomas Creek. Haven't been here since the first year I came up here 5 or 6 years ago. Kind of like to walk down the river. Last time we walked up around the bend there, way up and around to the river on that side. I'm kind of thinking of walking down more over this way. There's a cabin down there and a bridge and some different stuff. We might go down there and check that out. That is just fantastic. Little creek, huh? Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, maybe we found a little creek. Yeah, that's a little creek. That next morning, packed up for Johnson Creek, said bye to Jeff, and took off heading north. Moose Creek is the destination. It's a neat place. Anybody who's never been there, I highly recommend it. It's a lot quieter in Johnson Creek. Of course, they don't have as many amenities. There is fresh water up at the ranger camp. It's kind of on the north end of the smaller strip. You can get water up there, but overall it's just a really cool place to hang out. The rivers there are fantastic, and it's just neat. So I wanted to spend a couple of days there. Moose, super green this year. It's beautiful. A lot of stuff's growing up here. I'm on the shorter runway, and it's the first time, I think this is the fourth time camping here, but the first time getting this prime spot down here on the short runway. I've seen this before, you know, obviously looked at the spot, but it's always been somebody here, and I think it's really going to be a nice, really nice spot to camp. So rivers are all down off that way, so it puts you pretty close to all that. Sure is nice back in here. I mean, look at this. There's a lot of shade. I think it's going to get pretty warm over the next few days, so this might work out really nice. It is hotter than, well, I'm not going to say it, but it's hot. And I'm headed to the river, do a little swimming. Even if it's ice cold, I think I'm going to do some swimming. Plan now, we'll go down to the river. Met some Raptors, came by. Real nice folks. The gal I was talking to was a pilot, and she'd actually flown with Don Lee up in Alaska. Had some good stories. So we talked planes for a while. Real nice people. But anyway, I'm going to go down the river, go for a swim. When it cools off later, I'll either go join them because they're not leaving until tomorrow on their rafts, or I'll go down to Shearer or whatever when it cools off a little bit. So show you guys a spot down here on the river again. It's been a couple of years, and it's a pretty neat place. Nice little swimming hole last time I was there. That Selway River is a big son of a gun. It's pretty wild. I love how they call this a creek. And I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty big creek. Anyway, there's a swimming hole kind of down in that area. Well, I'll be honest with you guys, I only got in like waist deep. I just could not do it. And there's still snow up in the mountains here, and the rivers are way up and flowing really fast, and man, it is super cold. Okay, so I made friends with the Raptors down here at Moose Creek. Awesome people. The rafting guides are freaking awesome. They invited me to dinner. I don't want to film too much stuff because there's a bunch of guests here, and I don't think they care. They're all really nice people. But I just kind of wanted to show. What I didn't realize is how elaborate and impressive the setup is that they bring in and set up at these camps. They cook fantastic, like, 5-star meals, and they bake cakes and desserts while they're here. I mean, it's just, I had no idea. So this particular outfitter, I guess, is called Hughes.
So funny. Yeah, here, yeah. Okay, so here's
A little video of it.
and see the flamethrower? Like, that's how he's cooking.
There you go.
Look at that. Isn't that hilarious?
Oh, that's that's awesome.
And Hardy's just like, doo-doo.
Oh, yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you. See ya. Oh, this is just amazing. I had no idea. But that is fantastic. Yeah, now I can take a little video here. The guests all went to go do some fishing with some of the other guides. But I was just talking to 2 of the guides. There's 5 total. And they are super nice guys. Really cool. Told me all about how this works. And they said it's kind of cost ranges in that $2,500 to $3,000 area, which is kind of what I pictured. But it's 6 days all inclusive, and I mean all inclusive. Like I said earlier, like they're making desserts while they're out here in the woods and feeding them really good, and just they take care of everything, clean up everything. It's just really, I didn't realize it was like that. Probably a lot of you guys know more about this and knew that, but I had no idea. So really fun experience to talk to everybody here and see how that works. That was neat. You know, there's some animosity sometimes between rafters and the pilots and stuff out in these areas. At least I've been told that. But all I can say is I've run into a few groups of rafters over the years. This one here being the most in-depth, going into their camp, talking to the guides, really spending some time with them. And so that's really all I can base it off of. And they were absolutely as welcoming and friendly as possible. I'm out of breath, sorry. It's a pretty steep hill. Headed back to camp though. I decided to go down to Shearer despite it being actually a pretty windy evening. Not realizing that the next evening I was there was like dead calm, but yeah, it makes it kind of fun. I got to land Shearer the opposite direction you normally do due to the wind. And just keep in mind, if you come down to Shearer and you find something that don't have a lot of power, it is a bit of a bowl here, pretty much all the way around. So, you know, it's not super long and it's pretty tall. There's kind of an opening sort of around, you know, if you follow the river and make a turn, but it's, you know, it's a fairly sharp turn, so it's not the best option. But it's a little bit, it's not, I mean, it's not like it's super hard. It's more probably airplane dependent than anything. Just needs some good performance. The Raptor guys, you know, the fancy camp down there, were telling me that they sometimes they launch out of here for certain reasons, and they bring in islanders in here and bring in all the rafts and gear and everything. And he said that's pretty scary to be riding on one of those when they come in here. It's like, yeah, I can imagine that's a bit of a tight squeeze. All right, guys. Well, it's first day here at Moose. Kurt just got in. Talked to him. He's getting set up over there. We got us a nice little cove here. But I'm gonna go and do this hike. Today, we're gonna take the hike. It's actually kind of back to the north. There is it's that like old homestead ranch deal where there used to be an airstrip. It's kind of on the river. I've heard it's really cool. It's worth doing. That's what I'm headed to do, and take you guys along with, and we'll see what we see. Well, shortly after I took the trail to go up to this place, it split. There was a high road and a low road. I stayed low to stay by the river, and I don't know if the high road's better, but man, this one is pretty thick. And being that it's probably 80 plus degrees already at 9:30 in the morning, shorts seem like the right plan at that time, but it's not exactly the right choice now. So hopefully it opens back up a little bit here, but yeah, it turns out the high road might have been the better choice. Wow, that's covered in cobwebs and all kinds of good stuff. That's always fun. That's the trail. So, I don't really want to backtrack now. I've gone far enough. I went up and around to that spot. It's a pretty rugged trail. I'm surprised. It's worse than I expected. It reminds me of being a kid and just blazing your own trails through the woods. Not quite what I expected today, but pretty freaking fun at the same time. Well, I really hope I'm getting close, because, man, this has been a battle and I'm sweating so hard it's just getting weird at this point. Well, I lost the trail here a while back in this skeleton forest. Well, this is getting to be just about sucky. I went way up, and then I cut all the way back down to the river straight across. The trail's gone. I'm clear down to about the water, and there's nowhere to walk along the edge. Like the other side there is. You can just walk along the river the whole way. And see, the thing is, I'm fairly close. So if I could just push through, then I can find the trail, maybe the high trail back. But at this point, it doesn't really do me any good to try to go back. You know, I think there's less in front to get there than there is to go back, I think. So, but it's a mess. This is basically what I've resorted to get around some of this. I just got to go through the water, so whatever. Making more progress doing this than I was going through the bushes. I traversed like probably 1/8 of a mile or more in the river, so I'm soaked. Once my feet, I slipped in with 1 foot, you know, and got wet, and at that point I was like, hell with it. So actually made way more progress even trudging upstream along the bank and having to go over stuff like that. But I looked up and I'm like, that looks like a cutout on the side of the hill for a trail. And sure enough, so I hiked up this, and there's the trail. And that is a welcome sign there. All right, well, I made it here. We'll go check that out in a second. Walk down, there's this nice little sandy beach here on the water. Man, there's a lot of buildings here. So this is the main structure, but there's a bunch of cabins, some outbuildings, big barn back up there. And then there was a runway somewhere up over there. It's kind of overgrown with small trees and stuff now, but it was carved up into the side of the hill. And so kind of seeing there a little bit. I mean, this was a pretty nice looking deal. All right, so the history of the Seminole Ranch is pretty interesting. Started out in 1908. A guy named Frank Freeman applied for a homestead claim. Then in the 20s and 1920s, it changed hands several times. In 1952, Omar Richardson purchased the homestead and called it the Selway River Ranch. But then just 4 years later, it was sold to Joe Richardson, and they actually owned a lumber mill in Orofino. They built several structures. They hauled in approximately 80,000 board feet of lumber, 1,000 bricks, 1,500 concrete blocks, and 70 tons of rock. They brought it in over at Moose Creek and then hauled it over there. The strip there at Seminole Ranch is pretty short, and I'm not sure actually when the little airstrip there was built. At one point they had 28 people there at that ranch for Thanksgiving. In 1964, Robert Griffith bought the ranch to operate a small outfitter operation, and that's where it got its current name, the Seminole Ranch, named it after a friend of his who was part Seminole Indian. I'm not sure how long he actually operated it, but in 2001, a conservation fund purchased the ranch, and then in 2005 the Forest Service acquired the property, and that leads us up to its current status. So it looks like they came up with $1.7 million to buy part of the ranch, this conservation fund, before then selling it to the Forest Service. And I read somewhere that it sounded like they'd like to tear down all the buildings and get rid of everything. I was hoping to find more information about the airstrip there itself, And looking at it on Google Earth, it looks like there was around 1,300 foot potentially usable of this strip. It is up a hill surrounded by trees, so it was definitely one way. But wasn't a good hike. I didn't realize they haven't cleaned that trail. You know, the other trails around there are all cleared up pretty nice, and they've taken good care of them. I don't know why that one hasn't got any attention. You know, it was an adventure, and I got there and saw it, and I guess that's cool. I sure wouldn't do it again now, knowing what I know about that trail. Well, it's the last night here at Moose, and it's been an adventure. I gotta tell you guys, you know, coming up here, this place, and there's really nothing like it. It's the only way I can put it. You just experience things that you just don't get unless you come out to a place like this. It's pretty amazing. It's been a totally calm evening. Just been a beautiful evening. So, minus a few skeeters. But other than that, it's been just about perfect. All right, so the next morning said goodbye to Moose, packed up and took off and headed north. Went up there to spend a couple of days with my friend John at his place. We did a little flying up there, and I'll like to share that with you guys.
We're in trouble now. Look who arrived.
Well, I'm up here at my buddy John's and just doing a little pit stop here, check the oil and look everything over and do some stuff. And it's always nice to, after, I guess I've had 7 nights in a tent, so stop for a couple nights with a real bed. It's a pretty good deal, hard to pass up, but yeah, be pretty good. But he's a hell of a guy, and I appreciate him letting me come in and stay, and we'll do some flying tomorrow. Well, fixing a little something while I'm here at John's. I don't know if you guys noticed in the video, possibly in the internal camera, but my RPM tack signal has been jumping around a little bit, and it sets off a blinking light on the panel when it thinks it's overspeeding the engine, which it wasn't actually doing, but it's been erratic. And there's a resistor you got to have in there on these MGL instruments. Every so often, the resistor, it kills the resistor, and it's kind of a weird deal. So this last time I had wired a couple resistors together to get the right resistance, and it worked for a long time, but then it started getting slightly erratic, and when I just put an ohm meter on it, the resistance was off from the target. So obviously some of the ones I wired in have died. Some are still working, and it just isn't quite enough. So John actually had the provided one from MGL from some old instruments he's not using anymore. I sure appreciate his hospitality with a place to stay and tools and resistors, and he's a one-stop shop for for me when I come up here. So you guys have seen this before. This is John's Legend Cub with a Titan, and he's got a few new mods and things he's done, like the belly pod there. Obviously that's a Carbon Concepts pod. He's really happy with that. It's pretty light for how big that sucker is, and it made the airplane faster. So, which is pretty common on these Cubs, but that's a sweet deal, man. I am a little jealous of that because he can really load this baby up now, and it's a good machine. You know, this is a sweet machine. He's really loving it, so that's awesome.
building. See that roll cage coming up off that cat?
Yeah.
I think it was somewhere right over in there.
It's right over there. Okay. Oh yeah, I see it. Okay, so that was the first electric sawmill in the United States.
Yep.
Was here in Elk River. Wow, that's super cool. My family comes from the sawmill industry way back when, so that's really awesome. But yeah, beautiful morning out. John and I just flew down here to Elk River. We're gonna go have some breakfast and just gonna enjoy this morning because it's about as good as it gets. All right, so we made it up here and had breakfast here at the Elk River Lodge, and it was freaking fantastic. Huckleberry pancakes. I'm having a huckleberry milkshake, and it is fantastic. Oh yeah, I wasn't sure I was gonna like it, just because I'm fairly picky, fairly simple. But the hype is real for a reason. It's good stuff. So this has been a pretty fun morning. I just had to stop the video here for just a second and talk about huckleberries. I never had them before, as you probably picked up from the video. Really enjoyed having some huckleberries. They're really good. And I was raving about them, and we got back to John's, and his wife actually made me huckleberry pancakes the next morning, and we got to have these really good like huckleberry cheesecake desserts that she makes that you're seeing right here. And these were fantastic. So big thank you to her. I really got to enjoy some huckleberries on this trip, and it was just, it was great. So John and I went out 2 different mornings and hit some different strips and flew into some different places. And like we went back into Cayuse, showed you guys that last year. That's a place I really like. The river there is just beautiful. It's just I don't know, it's just a nice place. And so I'll show you a couple of clips from that. And then also I'll show you a couple of clips. We stopped in at Fish Lake and had something pretty awesome happen while we were there. Nicely done. Yeah, one already went over.
You guys need to come back and do that again. We weren't ready. You guys need to come back here and do that again. We weren't ready with the camera. Oh, we can tell.
Oh my God, that is so sick. Yeah! That was awesome. All right, guys, we're going to end off the video there. That concludes the Idaho 2022 adventure. I hope you enjoyed these videos. It was a little bit of a different adventure this year with fuel prices like they are. Did a fair bit less flying and a little more adventuring on the ground, so I appreciate you guys coming along for the hike and some of that kind of stuff. It's not maybe as exciting, but gives a little different look at the kinds of adventures you can have in these places. I'd like to give a thanks to John and his wife Sharon for having me up there for a few days. Appreciate their hospitality. I'd like to thank the Patreons again. You guys do make the difference in keeping me going, making these videos. Also wanted to say thanks to everybody on this trip that came up and talked to me, that had watched the channel and knows what gravity night flying is and all that. There was a handful of people. Ran into a guy at Elk City, some people at Johnson Creek. That was just really fun. It was great to meet you guys. Especially, I want to mention when I was up at John's place, a friend of his came by. His name is Grant, and I got to meet him, and he'd been watching my stuff for a while. And Grant's done some flying in the past, and just great guy, absolutely one of the nicest people you'd ever meet, and really enjoyed talking to him. And he kind of mentioned something about maybe he'd like to get back and do a little flying, and I just wanted to say, Grant, I think that's a great idea. I hope you do. But anyway, it was great meeting you guys. And hey, if I'm out there in public, flying around in the backcountry or doing whatever, and you guys know who I am, always feel free to come up and say hi. It's great to meet you guys. I always enjoy that. So I just wanted to make sure you guys know that it's always nice to say hi to you guys when I'm out there. And with that, I believe we will wrap it up there. You guys know the deal. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks a lot for being a part of the channel, you guys. Really appreciate it.